Think of someone who annoys you. Don't say it out loud. Just picture them. The coworker who talks through their whole lunch. The relative who has an opinion about your life choices. The neighbor, the guy on the train, whoever it is, you've got someone. Now here's the good news. You can escape them. You can leave the room. You can change jobs. You can move to a different city. You can mute, block, unfollow, or simply never reply. Modern life is packed with exits, and we use them constantly without even noticing. Annoying people are for us a temporary condition. Now take all of that away. You are in a group of maybe 20 or 30 people. That's your entire world. There is no other town to move to. There is no other job. You cannot leave because being alone out there means dying. These are the only humans you will ever really know, and you will see every single one of them, every single day, from the day you're born until the day you die. And one of them is insufferable. Maybe he's a bragger. Ooh, maybe she never shares. Maybe he tells the same story constantly and always makes himself the hero. Maybe they take the best bits of food, or they're lazy, or they chew like a horse and you have to listen to it for the next 40 years. So what do? You can't leave. You can't call anyone. You can't post about it. There's no boss to complain to, no police to call, no court, no law, and no written rule that says what they're doing is even wrong. And yet, humans lived like this, in tiny, inescapable groups for hundreds of thousands of years, and somehow didn't tear each other apart. So they must have had a system, and they did. It was clever, it was ruthless, it was hilarious, and honestly, bits of it were better than what we've got. Let's find out how our ancestors handled the human problem. I want you to really feel the situation before we get to the solutions. Because the pressure of it is the whole point. Imagine a group of 30 people. Everyone knows everyone completely. Everyone knows who snores, who's lazy, who's brave, who lies, who cries easily, who's secretly in love with whom. There is no privacy, no anonymity, no fresh start, no new me. Your reputation was established when you were 4 years old and everyone remembers it. Now add the crucial ingredient. You need these people. This isn't like disliking someone at work, where the worst case is an awkward afternoon. Your actual survival depends on this group. You need them to share food when your hunt fails. You need them to watch for danger while you sleep. You need them to carry you if you're hurt. You cannot survive alone, so every single relationship is holding you up, which creates a beautifully awful tension. You are furious at someone who you might need to save your life next week. You want to tell them exactly what you think. But if you blow up the relationship, you're damaging your own safety net. And you can't just avoid them, because there is nowhere to go. That's the trap. Total intimacy, total dependence, zero escape. Add in the stuff that makes people snap, hunger, exhaustion, fear, everyone crammed together for shelter, no personal space, and you have a genuine pressure cooker. Google. Researchers who've lived with small mobile communities report exactly what you'd expect. It's not constant harmony. There are grudges, there are feuds, there are people who genuinely cannot stand each other and have to sit near the same fire every night for decades. It turns out our ancestors developed a whole toolkit. And the first tool is one you use yourself probably today. Let's start with the one we all pretend is a vice. Gossip. We treat gossip as petty and mean-spirited. It is, in fact, one of the most important social technologies humans ever invented, and in a world with no laws, it was doing genuinely heavy lifting. Here's the problem it solves. In a group with no police, no courts, and no written rules, how do you stop someone behaving badly? You can't arrest them. You can't fine them. But you can make sure everybody knows. And that's the whole mechanism. Gossip turns private behavior into public information. The man who took more than his share when he thought nobody was watching, somebody saw, and by evening, everybody knows. The person who claimed credit for someone else's work, the one who's been lazy, the one who lied, the group finds out because in a small community, information travels instantly. Now think about what that does. Your reputation is your entire social currency. It determines whether people share with you, help you, choose you as a partner, or come looking for you when you don't return. In that world, being known as selfish or dishonest isn't just embarrassing, it's genuinely dangerous. So gossip creates a permanent invisible pressure on everybody to behave, because everyone knows they're being watched and discussed, always. Researchers who study conversation in small, close-knit communities find that a huge share of talk is about exactly this: other people. Who did what? Who's pulling their weight? Who can be trusted? It's not idle noise, it's the community continuously updating its shared database of who everybody is. So the first line of defense against an annoying person wasn't confronting them. It was talking about them, constantly, to everyone. until it got back to them, and the pressure started to work. And if that didn't do the job, the group escalated to something much sharper and much funnier. This is my favorite thing in this entire video, because it's simultaneously hilarious and genuinely profound. In a lot of small, equal societies, the primary tool for handling someone who's getting too big for their boots is mockery, not gentle teasing. Sustained, deliberate, expertly targeted teasing. And it's not random cruelty. It's aimed with real precision at one specific offense: arrogance. Someone who starts acting superior, sir, showing off, claiming special status, or ordering people around gets absolutely dismantled by jokes until they climb back down to everyone else's level. There's a wonderful documented pattern among some hunter-gatherer groups where a hunter brings back a genuinely impressive animal, a real achievement, meat for everyone, and the group's response is to insult it. They'll look at this magnificent kill and say things like, "Is that all? A skinny old thing. Barely worth carrying home. You dragged us all out here for this?" And the hunter is expected to agree. He's expected to be modest about it. About it, yes. It's a pathetic little animal. I'm embarrassed. Sorry, everyone. To an outsider, this looks confusingly rude. But when researchers asked why, the explanation was startlingly clear and honest. The reasoning was, in effect, when a man kills a lot of meat, he starts to think of himself as a big man, and a big man starts to think of the rest of us his servants. We can't accept that. So we praise the meat by insulting it, to cool his heart and make him gentle. That is not petty. That is an anti-tyranny system. It's a community that has worked out, without any political theory whatsoever, that unchecked status leads to domination, and has built a cultural immune response to stop it before it starts. Jokes as a defense against would-be tyrants. And it's used on annoying people generally. Someone selfish gets mocked for their greed, someone lazy gets teased about it publicly, someone boastful gets punctured. The mockery is usually affectionate in form and merciless in content, and crucially, it's done in front of everyone, because the audience is the point. It's a correction delivered as comedy, so nobody has to have an actual confrontation, which is genuinely elegant. It lets you communicate your behavior is unacceptable while everyone laughs, nobody fights, and the offender can back down without losing face, because it was only a joke, wasn't it? Compare that to how we handle it now, which is mostly, say nothing. See the internally for 11 months, then have one catastrophic argument. Real quick, if you're enjoying this, do me one small favor and hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about the surprising truth of how our ancestors really lived, and there's a new story every week. That's it, back to the annoying people. If mockery didn't work, the next step up was withdrawal. People simply reduced contact. They stopped sharing so freely. They didn't invite you along. They gave short answers. They started camping a little further away. Nothing was announced, nothing was declared, and there was no dramatic confrontation. The warmth just quietly drained out of your daily life. Now, that sounds mild. It absolutely was not. Because remember, this isn't a modern office where being frozen out means an uncomfortable week. This is a world where your relationships are your food supply, your insurance policy, and your protection. Losing the group's goodwill isn't hurt feelings. It's a measurable decline in your safety, and it's especially powerful because it's impossible to prove. Nobody has done anything you can complain about. Nobody's been aggressive. You just slowly realize that you're on the outside of something, and that people are choosing not to include you, and that if things went badly for you tomorrow, fewer of them would come running. It's a punishment with no perpetrator. And that makes it very hard to fight back against, which is exactly what makes it effective. Here's the option we've completely lost, and honestly, I'm a bit jealous of it. For mobile hunter-gatherer groups, one of the great advantages was that the group itself wasn't fixed. If a conflict got bad enough, two people who genuinely couldn't be around each other, or a dispute that wasn't going to resolve, the solution was often beautifully simple. People split up, a family or a few individuals would pack up and go join a different band. And this wasn't dramatic or shameful, it was normal. Groups constantly gained and lost members. People had relatives and friends scattered across other bands, and moving between them was a completely ordinary part of life. Researchers have a term for this: splitting. And it's a genuinely brilliant conflict resolution mechanism, because it means disputes have a natural pressure valve. You don't have to resolve every argument. You don't have to force two people who hate each other to reconcile. You can just reduce the number of times they have to see each other permanently without anybody being punished. Think about how sane that is compared to us. When you have a serious falling out with a neighbor, a colleague, or a family member, you're often stuck in a shared space with them indefinitely, forced to be civil, quietly resenting each other for years. Ancient humans had a better answer. If this isn't working, one of us goes somewhere else. We can still be friendly when we meet again at a seasonal gathering. Distance solves an enormous number of human problems. They used it. We mostly can't, but sometimes none of it worked. Gossip didn't shame them. Mockery didn't humble them. Withdrawal didn't humble them. And some people are genuinely dangerously destructive. The bully, the thief, the person who threatens others, the one who takes and gives nothing back. For those cases, there was a final sanction, and it was severe exclusion. Being cast out of the group, and in that world that isn't a social inconvenience, it's close to a death sentence. Alone, you cannot get enough food reliably. You cannot sleep safely. You cannot survive illness or injury. You have no one. The wilderness that felt like home when you were surrounded by 30 people becomes something else entirely when you're by yourself. So exile was the ultimate deterrent, and everyone knew it. Which meant the mere possibility of it hung quietly over everyone's behavior every day. You didn't need laws written down when the consequence of pushing too far was being removed from the only source of safety you had. And there's a darker end to this, which I'll mention because it's honest. In some documented cases in small societies, when an individual became genuinely dangerous, repeatedly violent, a real threat to others, the group's response could go beyond exile. Sometimes the community collectively decided the person could not continue. It's grim and it wasn't common, but it's part of the picture. In a world with no prisons, a group had very few options for someone who wouldn't stop hurting people. So the full ladder looks like this. Gossip, then mockery, then cold shoulder, then suppression, then exile, with each step more serious than the last. That's not chaos. That's a functioning justice system, running entirely on reputation and relationships, with no writing, no institutions, and no enforcement other than everybody's shared opinion. Here's a genuinely uncomfortable comparison. Their system had something ours doesn't. Immediate, constant, honest feedback. If you were being annoying in that world, you found out straight away. Somebody teased you about it that afternoon. The correction arrived early, in a low-stakes, humorous form, and you adjusted. Problems got dealt with while they were small. Now think about how we do it. We're extremely polite. We say nothing. We tell everyone except the person involved. We let it accumulate for months or years, and then either explode way too hard or quietly cut someone off forever, without ever telling them why. A lot of people go through their entire lives with a genuinely irritating habit that everyone has noticed and nobody has ever mentioned. Their way was blunter, and it stung more in the moment, but it was arguably kinder, because it gave people a chance to correct course, over and over, while the stakes were still low. And there's a second thing they had that we've lost. Everybody was in it together. The corrections came from the whole group, not one brave individual. Nobody had to be the villain who made it awkward. The community handled it collectively, which is far easier on everyone than expecting one person to confront another alone. We've traded that for privacy and politeness, and the price is that a lot of us are quietly annoying people every day with absolutely no idea we're doing it. Here's the twist that ties the whole video together, and it's my favorite part. Everything I've described only works under two conditions. Small groups and the ability to walk away. Gossip works when everyone knows everyone. In a village of thousands, reputation gets diluted, and you can be a stranger. Mockery works when there's a shared culture and a small audience. And splitting, just leaving, only works when you're mobile and there's somewhere to go and you can carry everything you own. Then, roughly 10,000 years ago, we started farming. And every one of those conditions collapsed. Suddenly you couldn't leave because your food was planted in the ground and it would be months before harvest. You had built a house. You had stored grain. Your wealth was in one place and it wasn't portable. So when your neighbor turned out to be insufferable, that ancient solution, fine, we'll move on, was simply gone. You were stuck permanently next to them forever, and groups got much bigger. Villages, then towns, then cities, full of people who didn't all know each other. Gossip couldn't reach everyone. Mockery couldn't shame a stranger. The whole informal system, which had worked beautifully for hundreds of thousands of years, stopped functioning, so we had to build something to replace it, written rules. Because you couldn't rely on everyone just knowing. Judges and chiefs and courts, because there was no longer a single group opinion. Punishments, because you couldn't exile someone from a city. Police, because reputation alone no longer restrained people who could disappear into a crowd. And that's the thought I want to leave you with. Our entire system of laws and institutions is, in a real sense, a replacement technology for the annoying person problem. For most of human history, the solution was gossip, jokes, a cold shoulder, and the freedom to walk away. Once we couldn't walk away anymore, we had to invent government instead. Honestly, one small thing, the next time somebody irritates you, and they will probably today, remember that you have something almost no human in history had. You can leave. You can close a door, walk out of a room, take a different route, decline the invitation, or simply go home. That's an extraordinary luxury, and it's brand new. But also remember what our ancestors had that we don't. They dealt with things early, out loud, and together. They made a joke of it before it became a grudge. And they had the wisdom to know that pretending everything's fine for years while quietly seething isn't politeness, it's just a slower way of falling out. They couldn't escape each other. So they got extremely good at the alternative, which, when you think about it, is the harder skill, and the one we've mostly forgotten.